Avoidants genuinely like to enjoy life. That part gets misunderstood a lot. They're not cold, boring, or anti-connection. Most avoidants actually love laughter, ease, shared experiences, and partners they can genuinely vibe with. They value alignment, similar values, similar pace, similar outlook on life, because alignment reduces friction, and less friction means less stress on an already sensitive nervous system. And this is important to understand because avoidants don't enter relationships relaxed or empty. They usually enter already carrying a high level of internal stress. Their nervous systems operate with a lower capacity threshold, meaning they can only tolerate so much stimulation, pressure, or emotional demand before becoming overwhelmed. They can't take too much. The reason for this isn't that they're weak. It's because avoidants tend to hold everything inside. They don't release stress easily. They don't process emotions right at the moment of things happening. They process slowly, internally, and often alone. So while it may look like they're fine on the outside, there's usually a buildup happening beneath the surface. Unprocessed emotions, unresolved stress, and mental pressure stack up in the body over time. Because of that, relationships that add friction, things like constant emotional intensity, conflict, drama, pressure to reassure over and over, or any type of ongoing stress, don't feel like love to an avoidant. They feel like overload. It just adds more stress. That's why dating someone who brings calm, stability, and low emotional pressure isn't a preference for avoidance. It's a nervous system need. Less friction allows their system to stay regulated. More friction pushes them into shutdown. This is why the avoidants are drawn to partners who feel easy to be around. Not boring, just safe. Not distant, but grounded. Someone whose presence doesn't demand more from an already taxed system. When a relationship feels like relief instead of another responsibility, avoidance can stay. When it feels like added weight, their body pulls away long before their mind catches up. Sometimes they may stay longer because they care and try to make it work, but if things continue, they will eventually leave. A lot of avoidants are dopamine oriented. They seek joy, novelty, movement, adventurous experiences. They want to feel alive. They want life to feel light, not heavy. So when they meet someone new, especially in the beginning, they're paying attention to how it feels to be around you. Is it easy? Is it fun? Is it calm? Or does it feel emotionally dense, complicated, or draining? At first, many people show up light, playful, open, fun. But as time goes on and emotional layers starts to peel back, the avoidant begins to notice what comes with deeper connection. And this is where things can shift. As the relationship progresses, avoidants naturally start scanning for alignment, not just emotionally, but practically. They will watch and analyze you and your entire life. They look at your lifestyle, financial stability, stress levels, family dynamics, emotional regulation. They're asking themselves, often unconsciously, what would it actually cost me to be in this relationship long term with this person? They tend to think far into the future with you, and this is important. Avoidants don't choose partners based only on attraction. They don't stay just because someone is beautiful or charming. They think in terms of sustainability. Logic matters to them, so they think logically first and don't make decisions based on emotions. Things must make sense to be with you. If the relationship feels like it's adding pressure instead of ease, their system starts to pull back. For example, at the beginning of getting to know someone, and they start to open up, and most of what comes out is about financial stress, debt, family chaos, emotional overwhelm, or constant struggle. The avoidant nervous system registers that as more weight, not because they lack compassion, but because their body already carries a high stress load. They're constantly managing internal pressure, even when it isn't visible on the surface. From the outside, this can look selfish or emotionally detached, but that's not what's happening. Many avoidants are deeply aware of their limits and quietly worry that they won't be able to handle the emotional intensity or meet someone else's needs without burning out. So if being with you feels like adding another layer of responsibility, problem solving, or emotional labor, their system starts asking, can I handle this? Do I have the capacity for this? Let's be real for a moment. If someone talks more about their debt than their dreams, more about their problems than their passions, more about what they need than what they enjoy, an avoidant hears stress. They don't hear partnership. They hear pressure. That doesn't mean people shouldn't be honest. Everyone has challenges. Everyone has a past. But avoidants differentiate between having challenges and leading with them. There's a difference between vulnerability and emotional dumping. There's a difference between sharing your life and unloading it onto someone else. Take finances, for example. If you're a woman with a high mortgage, debt, or financial strain and you're dating, it's natural to want a partner to eventually help. That's human. But if early conversations center around money stress, bills, or needing support, an avoidant man may interpret that as future dependency, especially if he's middle class, self-made, or already carrying responsibility. A millionaire might not care. A man with high financial bandwidth might not blink. But a middle class or high caliber man who worked hard for stability thinks differently. He's calculating impact, not judging worth. Avoidants assess risk. Avoidants are logical-based thinkers. They're scanning for problems not because they're heartless, but because their nervous system is allergic to overwhelm. They subconsciously choose the path of least emotional resistance. Less chaos, less unpredictability, less pressure. This also applies emotionally. If every interaction with you becomes heavy, every call turns into venting, every text turns into emotional processing, every conversation feels like something needs to be fixed, the avoidant will start pulling away because their system can't sustain that level of intensity. They can care deeply for you and still leave. If every "how are you" turns into emotional dumping, they associate connection with depletion. And once that association forms, distance becomes regulation. Even secure people can pull away from constant emotional loading. Avoidants just do it faster. If I'm in a good mood and I call you, and the conversation immediately turns into emotional dumping, especially about the same issue we've already talked about, and there's no effort to resolve it or take responsibility for fixing it on your own, that creates a problem. That kind of repeated emotional offloading without movement or self-reflection is called emotional dependency, and it naturally pulls the energy of the interaction downward. I'm not saying you can't call me when you're struggling. That's not the issue. The issue is calling over and over with the same unresolved problem, expecting me to regulate your emotions for you while nothing changes. At that point, it stops being connection and starts becoming emotional labor. And when that happens consistently, it drains the relationship and lowers the emotional vibration between two people. Avoidants want partners who can stand on their own, not because they don't want to be close to people, but because they don't want to feel responsible for someone else's emotional stability. They want someone who can walk beside them, not behind them chasing, and not in front of them dragging them forward. Codependency is a deal breaker for avoidance, even if it steers that way. Clinginess, doesn't have to be dramatic to register as unsafe. If they sense that someone needs them to feel okay, they instinctively create space. They don't want to be the emotional regulator for another adult. And here's the part that stings but matters. Avoidants don't stay in relationships out of potential. They stay based on present reality. They don't always think they'll change. They think, this is what it is. And if what it is feels heavy, they disengage. They want partnership, not rescue missions. Joy, not obligation. Ease, not constant emotional management. This doesn't make avoidance better because we know they have their own challenges too. It doesn't make others worse. It means compatibility matters more than chemistry. Alignment matters more than intensity. And if someone pulls away, it's not always because you're too much. Sometimes it's because their nervous system doesn't have the capacity for what your life currently requires. The lesson here isn't to hide who you are or pretend you don't have struggles. It's to build a life where you're not relying on romantic connection to stabilize you, where you can enjoy someone without needing them, where partnership feels like an addition, not a solution. Avoidants are drawn to people who feel grounded, regulated, and self-sufficient. People who bring lightness and depth, fun and stability, emotion and self-control. They don't want perfection. They want peace. And when peace meets alignment, that's when they stay. If this helped you understand what really happened, please like, subscribe, or share this with someone who's still confused.